Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for checking out the Indy Handshake Wrestling Podcast. My name is Paul Ponte, and I am joined today from across the pond by Shady Nattrass. How are we doing today?
All good here, thanks.
I'm so excited to talk to you. First time I've had a guest record from actually another country. I've had guests from other countries, but not a guest recording while in another country. I know we're all dealing with different stuff as far as COVID. So, I'm guessing for you, the number one thing is, man, you wish you could get back in a ring.
Oh, I can't wait. There's schools reopening for training and things now, but it's a case of just safety. Like, I know my family have got high risk people involved, so yes, people can go and train again, but whether it's safe for myself to do it is another matter.
Yeah, so one of the other guests I had on, they said, oh yeah, well, we've been doing training and it's just been some of us, but then every once in a while, someone else, because other workers are looking for a ring, they're like, oh, can I just get some ring time? And you're like, well, who have they been seeing? And now I'm seeing them. And then.
Yeah, there's a big unknown chain, isn't there?
Yeah. So it's a little tough. But let's go back in time to the better times when there were crowds. Everyone was excited. Let's talk about how you got into the world of independent pro wrestling.
Well, when it must have been about early 90s, I became a wrestling fan. Obviously, it was the WWF and what we could get our hands on over here in the UK. It was very rare you got much wrestling at all, to be honest. It was the British wrestling was off the TV by the time I started watching. You'd occasionally get WCW shows, but like what we learned early on was obviously the time difference. If we were to watch a pay-per-view over here, it was like 1, 2 a.m. in the morning. So it did make it difficult. And then mid-90s, I've got 3 brothers, and we all kind of dove headfirst into wrestling. I don't, probably because we were left to fight along with each other. So we just finding the old magazines and seeing who was around, what we could get our hands on, which tapes were available. And then it was late in 99. We found an advert for a school, which was reachable for us. And to be honest, it wasn't the best, but it got us started, so we can't complain.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, everyone, I'm assuming like from an outsider point of view, they might think of wrestling as like, oh, you sign up for a thing and then you learn how to do it like it's a trade, but it's not the way it works. Some people, and with varying degrees, some people who wrestle with some of the best trainers in their life, they're still the shits and they don't do well. So, and some people train with nobodies and they end up amazing. So really, it also depends on your individual skill. It depends on how adept you are. It depends on everything.
Yeah, it definitely does. You could have the best, as you say, the best trainers in the world and still not progress yourself. So, we, as I say, we didn't have the best training, and it was definitely a lot of learn on the job. And what we found early on, because obviously we had, as I said, there was me and my 3 brothers. We learned early on, we could do it this way. It would make sense if we did this. Wrestling became a lot of common sense to us rather than, I need to learn how to do wrestling. It's like, hey, if we needed to do this move, this would be the way we would do it. So yeah, we tended to teach ourselves.
Yeah, I feel like that gets lost a lot in some of the times the way people make up spots is they don't think about like what's a realistic way I could get to this spot. They just kind of do it and you go,
yeah.
And honestly, it's not even like you kind of think in your head with just like a little bit of tweaking, it would make it so much better. But
yeah, absolutely. It's, as you say, people they want to get to the cool bit as quickly as they can. And it just that couple of seconds makes a massive difference.
Yeah. I mentioned before there was like, for instance, okay, like I'll use a big name as an example. Like in the latest All Elite Wrestling pay-per-view, they had Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page, right? And when he did his finisher, when Kenny Omega did the finisher, the whole time Adam Page was punching him in the head, trying to get him not to do it. And then when he hit the finisher, no more fight. It was done. And I love that little bit. I'm like, oh, he knows if he gets the finisher on him, it's over. It's over. And he's trying so hard to get out of it, and he can't. And I'm like, just that tiny little thing made me appreciate the move much more.
They're the bits I love. And it is like I'm highly critical of my own work. So like I've watched my matches back, and there's been a split second, and I've went, oh no, that was the worst. Nobody's noticed. Not one person's noticed. But it is them little bits that can make it or break it for you personally.
Well, I do edit these myself, so I know the feeling. Trust me. I sit there. I must have counted my ums and likes about 100 times. But hey, I'm not a professional broadcaster. I just love wrestling. So, so what was some of the more surprising things? I mean, I know everyone says, taking a bump. Oh, I didn't realize how much it would hurt, that kind of thing. But what about the other stuff, like the backstage politics? I don't know how it is over there, because I've always been more in tune with like American wrestling etiquette, quote unquote. I don't know if you guys, if you have the same, the shaking hands of everyone, the little, as I call it, the Indy handshake, the little very soft, all that. So how did you find learning all that stuff, your learning curve when it came to that?
Well, we kind of took it like on ourselves to adapt as the time went. And as you say, you can kind of take a step back and see how everybody else backstage is acting. And I've always wanted to be professional. That's what professional wrestling. So I always try to act professionally. I'll have a laugh and a joke with everybody, but as you say, the Indy handshake and everything like that. Well, we have a training school over here as well, and we actually brought it up to our students, and not one of them had even heard of it. doing the soft handshakes. But yeah, it was easy enough for us. We were also lucky that there was a group of us, so we were kind of safe with ourselves, if that makes sense. Yeah,
I guess when and plus when you actually know each other like for a long period of time, then you kind of gain like a trust. You're more adept to being like, if someone's like, well, I want to try this kind of crazy thing, you're like, well, I trust you, so I think we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And going in, what kind of style did you want to emulate, and then how did that change with when you actually got in the ring?
Well, I always find like the beginning of my wrestling career and wrestling fandom very strange, because I was never a usual Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior fan. I was drawn to your Mr. Perfects and people like that, and I don't really know why. It was just I obviously just thought it was good, and so I just wanted to entertain and be a wrestler however I could. I was always like a New Japan in junior heavyweight fan. So when I'd always want to wrestle like that, but I'm not a big flippy guy, so it's kind of just adapting to however I worked. And like maybe about 5 years ago, I took a heel turn in our local promotion, and everything kind of clicked from there to how I wrestle now. And I always say to people, like, it took me 14 years to realize how to wrestle.
Oh, that's definitely true, because there's sometimes the difference you see, and wrestlers I know personally, the person they were when even 10 years into the business is not the same person they got 20 years into the business. It's just a completely different character, completely different way they walk. They learn specific kind of things you have to do in order to save yourself a little bit in the ring. Like Vinny Massaro on here said, oh, my favorite thing ever is if you do a regular suplex and the crowd pops, because then I know, oh my God, I get to have an easy night.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's always good stuff. And you mentioned the local promotion. Is that Target Wrestling?
That is Target Wrestling, yeah.
So talk a little bit about Target Wrestling and how you got into that.
Well, it's actually my brother that runs it, and we had been running shows a few years before that, just not a very big success, and it's very much a family ran promotion. Like at one point there would be me, my oldest brother, and my mother doing the ring crew. So putting the ring up and down was
Which
a
is a
bit of
pain
a
in the ass.
yeah, yeah, it was.
I've done a with my friend Jesus who's the other host of this podcast who interviews people. He ran a show and it was me, him, and one other person
Yeah.
built up the whole ring. Fuck that.
Oh, yeah. um, but we had got a business partner and had a bit of a rebrand, and we just put the foot to the gas and headed straight on. Been lucky enough to get some big names in as well, so that's always helped. And then we were lucky that we had a really good venue that brought a brilliant atmosphere with it. So it all kind of worked for us. Everything kind of clicked together. So yeah, we're very happy with how it goes.
So have you been do you run basically in the same venue?
Yeah, we do. We do one. Well, until obviously COVID, we were doing one show a month at this same venue in our local area, Carlisle, and then we do surrounding area once a month in different areas to kind of keep ticking the boxes. We're trying to bring in more people to the bigger shows that are in our hometown. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, see, I feel like that's one thing a lot of promotions, especially when they're starting out, their biggest mistake is they don't run in a specific venue. For like I feel like you need that place that people know every month I can come back here and there
Yeah,
will be a show running. And like
absolutely.
and so what they do is they run shows sometimes, 50, 60 miles away from each other, and at that point you're really just expecting randos. There's no repeat customers at that point.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough selling point. When are you coming back? I don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah, you do need to try and get the return rather than just getting casuals every show.
And what is the UK indie scene like as far as wrestling goes? I mean, are you guys generally supportive of each other? I know over here, before it was very like territorial. People were like, if you work for them, you're not working for us. Now it's different. Now everyone works for everyone. Everything's great. But how is it over there? What's the comparison?
Um, More often than not, everybody's happy to work with each other. Even if it's just the case of flying and importing and sharing expenses and stuff. It's yeah, everybody seems to get along with everybody. I don't think there's really been too many issues. A lot of people tend to think that the whole NXT UK is kind of buried it all, but it seems to have kind of made everybody raise the game.
Mm.
If you the people signed to NXT UK can't work on your show, you're going to have somebody replace them. So the person that was slightly lower down the card, he works harder, he gets that spot. So that's how I see it anyway, and I'm kind of hoping everybody else does.
Yeah. I mean, the general thing I noticed online is that a lot of people say like, oh, NXT UK is basically there, just like you said, to kind of put a damper on another promotion getting too big in
Yeah.
England. Is that like the consensus? Is that what you feel like everyone there thinks that's kind of what's happening?
To be honest, that seems to be more a fan point of view rather than a wrestler point of view. And when the wrestlers on the other shows, they're all, everybody kind of gets on with everybody. So we know the lads that are signed. So everybody kind of gets on and is like supportive of each other. So it is kind of still positive, but yeah, I understand the fans' point of view oh, he signed with WWE now. I've lost my favorite wrestler. But yeah, it's my thing is that it is a positive thing for the independents as well, because not only if you do have a signed wrestler on, it's a draw. And as I say, everybody else needs to work harder, whether you want their spot or you're after getting signed. Yeah, if you want signed, you've got to be better. So, as I say, I'm all about improvement of the scene. So,
Yeah, I feel like there's, especially with online, has made it worse. You know, the Twitter world has made it a lot worse when it comes to fan stuff. I mean, there's the people who are supremely like, I only cheer for AEW, or the people that are, I only cheer for WWE. You know, like for me, I watch AEW. I don't really watch WWE anymore. It's a personal choice. What I don't do is go on to WWE comment sections and be like, this is stupid. Why do you guys watch this? I'm like, I don't give a shit. This is not my life.
absolutely no. I'm very much the same. If it doesn't affect me, I'm leaving it alone. I don't have time for that.
And also just knowing, working in independent wrestling, knowing so many wrestlers, wrestlers know so many other wrestlers. It's like kind of crazy, actually. Like I'll name drop people I know from that are like independent guys from like a very specific area, and somebody will be like, oh, I know them. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, one time we wrestled a long time ago in this one guy's promotion that's now out of business. We didn't even get paid. And then I'm like, okay, well there you go. And so like
sounds very the same thing that a lot of the UK is like.
Yeah, so for me, it's like wrestlers like to see their friends get paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like AEW guys are not angry at WWE guys for having WWE contracts. They're like, take the money, man. What is do it? Yeah. So everyone's got to eat. Yeah,
well, that's the other thing. A lot of fans and some wrestlers, to be honest, forget it's a business. It is a business from a wrestler's point of view or a promoter's point of view. So, and I understand that people can get frustrated with the way wrestlers, as you say, sign, or a promoter has booked a match that maybe doesn't seem like a wrestling fan's dream, but this match could bring an extra 50 people through the door. So it would then make sense to book it. But yeah, it's sometimes the bigger picture that needs to be looked at, rather than, oh, my favorite wrestler isn't wrestling on this show.
Yeah. I mean, but also at the same time, I get the frustrations, to know a guy like, and him, Ricochet.
Yep.
To say that he's been underused is a pretty typical statement for WWE. So at that point, I understand people's frustrations, because they're like, we know how good this guy is. It's a bummer he's not being used correctly.
Yeah. I've always thought that if I was to ever be signed, it would be like, hey, great, I'll take what I could. Hey, I've only been in the door a year. Hey, look what I've picked up in a year. I would now have a bit of credit behind my name. And yeah, like, as I say, sometimes it's the limit you put on yourself to get, you know what I mean? How long do you stay signed until you go, okay, I've had enough now?
Yeah.
It's a tough one for them.
Yeah, there's some people who are happy to completely toe the line, and there's people like CM Punk who's like, I don't like this. I'm not happy, and I'm out. And that's, that's a totally valid. Both are valid to me. It's like whatever you want to do. It's a personal thing. So
that's what I think a lot of people, as you say, especially on the likes of Twitter, forget. It's all personal choice. Even wrestling, like wrestling is probably one of the most subjective arts, performance, sports, whatever you want to call it. If you don't like it, watch a different type of wrestling. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
I understand people don't like, say, a comedy match because they want to see your hard hitting brawling or death matches even. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't take it away from wrestling.
Yeah.
There's more than enough options out there now. So yeah, it's a tough one for where, as you say, where do you draw the line of who does what? We could be here all day arguing points for every side, but as long as the wrestling's good, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I like to go back to the interview I did with Dark Chic because she runs Hood Slam, which is known to be a crazy, wild,
Yeah.
Big comedy, but also great wrestling show. And when she said on the podcast, really rung with me because she was like, if you think little old me is killing the business, you have no faith in the business.
Yeah.
Like, have more faith in wrestling. If you think that I'm going to be the one that shuts everything down, you don't have any shit. You don't have any faith. And I'm like, that's very true.
Like I've since COVID and lockdown and everything, I've been offering trainees and wrestlers feedback and critique from, as I say, I've been wrestling 20 years. And no, I'm not the biggest name on the scene, but a fresh pair of eyes can see something different. And the way I've tried to explain to people, and even like our trainees at Target, if John Cena tells you that you're doing something wrong, it doesn't take the fact that somebody like Okada has told you the opposite. There's no real right and wrong as long as it's safe. It's all just perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And one worker doing something might look bad, and one worker doing the exact same thing might make it look great. It really depends on who it is, how they do it, the little nuances on the way they do things. We talked about Scott Lost on here on the podcast, and like the way he would swing his leg out and like shift his elbow before he did an elbow drop, like just made that elbow drop look so much more impactful. Like little things like that. And you're like, that's amazing. He makes an elbow drop look better than a lot of people do. And like that kind of little thing is like, can you pull that off in a specific way? Who knows? But
yeah, I remember early in my career, I had been watching a lot of Dragon Gate, and Candy used to do an elbow drop off the top, and the way he did it, I was like, wow, that looks amazing. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start using that. And then I did it, and it was like, nah, that just looks awful when I do it.
And then speaking of Dragon Gate, you mentioned liking guys that weren't like you, like Mr. Perfect instead of Hogan, stuff like that. Like, yeah, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was a teenager with an NWO shirt like everyone else, but one of my favorite guys in WCW at the time was Ultimo Dragon, and you wouldn't say like, oh, he was the big draw of WCW, but to me, like every time I saw that guy work, I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like,
yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think me and you have cut from very much the same cloth in that thinking.
Yeah, because people are talking about like, oh, what are your like Mount Rushmores of wrestling? And I'm always like Eddie Guerrero, Ultimo Dragon, Lance Storm. I'm like, I feel like what? Like everyone's like, Stone Cold, The Rock, or whatever. And I'm just like, no, like I like this very specific like style like a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the indie wrestling scene. You have something you've been a part of, the Pro Wrestling Unity project thing, and tell me a little bit about that, how that came about, and just kind of plug it up for everyone.
Well, it's two things that kind of brought it around. Was the first one being, I know when I've been trying to share, whether it's show posters or highlight videos or things like that, and you only have so much reach by yourself, and between that and I like helping like my friends that are wrestlers, and if they're trying to plug a highlight video, I'm very much of the old school, because obviously the backstage politics back in the early 2000s was even as far as don't take a picture with another wrestler because you're just a wrestler as well, you're not a mark.
Yeah.
Which is just absolute bullshit. I was always, well, I don't want to share too many of my friends' things because I don't want to seem like just a mark. So as a way of kind of looking past that, it was let's have somewhere where we can share everybody's as I say, whether it's a wrestler, a promoter, a podcast, a merch brand, and just send it out. Show everybody, hey, have a look at this. If you don't like it, it's not the end of the world, but it's here. And I've been using it to share a lot of the UK stuff and the stuff from the States and just everywhere that we want wrestling to be, because we want the wrestling community to be better, because if the wrestling's better and more people coming through the door, then it's better for everybody. And it sounds a bit simple, but that's wrestling should be simple.
Yeah.
It can be as complicated as you want it in the ring, but the idea is still simple. It's get people in the door, watch some good wrestling, and then go home, and that's it.
Yeah. Can't argue with that. I mean, that is it goes in line with the whole, like when wrestlers get mad when something else is over. It always makes me laugh. I'm always like, that's the whole goal, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've obviously I'm a heel when I work over here, and my name's Shady Nattrass, so the fans take it on themselves to start chanting "shitty mattress," and it's over. Personally, I hate it, but didn't stop us from making T-shirts and selling them.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you know what's worse? They chant nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's much worse.
Exactly.
If they're if they're out of their chair going to grab a beer, that's much worse than any chant, anything. That is. Oh, so let's go a little bit more into the current style, the current product you're working now. What do you find works for a UK audience, especially in your area? What kind of style do they want?
Well, the target audience of a target is it is a good mix. We have a nice range of they appreciate good wrestling. They want a hardcore match. They like the high flying spots. They just want entertained. I worked with Shug D, and we had an absolutely ridiculous match, which had very little wrestling and kind of exposed some of the business, but the crowd wanted us to have a rematch. and then you have we've had people like Drew Gulak on. We've had Mustache Mountain, probably Target Wrestling's favorite import, Paul London. There's a lad over here called Josh Terry, who's, I don't know if he signed with NXT UK yet or any second. And he's like, for me, he's probably one of the best high flyers in the country. And yeah, they just appreciate everything. I'm more of a see what the crowd want, and my style's very adaptable to my opponent, because same thing again. I want to have the best wrestling matches on the show. I'm less bothered about, hey, look at me. I'd rather have, wow, that match wasn't half good. So yeah, I'm gonna get booed. That's my aim for the match, and then the match follows up with, oh, that was good.
Well, I always noticed. So, like, you talk about like exposing the business, but there's also good ways as far as fan appreciation when it comes to exposing the business. And I'll give you an example. When I was a teenager and Jesus Cruz, the other person who does the interviews in this podcast, he would edit highlight reels for local wrestlers like Michael Modest, the Ballard Brothers, a bunch of people, and for them to send out to other promotions or to WWF or WCW and try to get like a tryout match or something with these highlight reels. And I remember he would edit them, and for my teenage simple Mark brain, I was like, "Why is there footage of them getting their asses kicked in the highlight reel?" And he's like, "Oh, because they gotta be sure that they can sell." And I'm like, ah. And now I look back and I look at old stuff that I didn't used to appreciate when I was younger. And like, for instance, the Big Boss Man was somebody I never thought. I was like, whatever, it's the Big Boss Man. He's a big oaf or whatever. And then you look at it now and you go, for a big man, he moves. Second, he bumps the shit. He makes Hogan look like a superstar.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the stuff I never like. And that's only exposing the business makes me appreciate that now. I'm like, oh, like, look how good this guy works. Like, I never thought about how good a worker is based on how much punishment they take. So, like you mentioned, like, oh, you get booed or whatever. And as a heel, there's moments where, the crowd pops because you're getting your ass kicked. But if you're not good at getting your ass kicked in the ring, everyone looks bad.
Yep. And like I even put a few videos of myself getting beat up on YouTube because people were like, "Oh wow, I remember when he did that move to you." Like, you know what I mean? I was one of the first in the UK to take Pete Williams' Canadian Destroyer off Petey, and he's like, "Of course, I've got that clip ready." People, as I say, as a heel, you want people to go, "Yeah, he didn't half kill you there."
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's you want the crowd to go, "I wish it was me booting you in the face." And it's like, well, here's a video of me just getting booted in the face.
And you mentioned you said about 5 years ago when you went full on heel. Did that come naturally as far as playing with the crowd, promos, that kind of thing when it comes to being the heel in the ring?
I think so. One of my big advantages is I've very much got a miserable face. If I'm just acting myself, I've got a miserable looking face. So people go, "Oh, he's Shady. He's in a mood again," and it's like, "Yeah, we're going to give him some shit here." But as far as in the ring, it was just a case of I realized that, hey, I can slow down here. Just take my time and it just feel the booze and kind of okay, now it's time for us to move on to the next bit of the match or whatever. Because it was actually the match where I kind of realized, oh, this is how you do pro wrestling. Was, as I say, myself and Paul London, and I about 2 or 3 weeks earlier I had glandular fever, so I was bedbound for about a week and a half with stupidly high temperature, hallucinating, the whole lot.
Wow.
And we did our first spot. I took a baseball slide on the outside. I'm lying on the floor. My chest is on fire, and I'm thinking, I can't do this. I think I'm going to die. We carried on. He went for a slingshot Oklahoma roll, and he hit his shoulder on my elbow, and I thought I broke my arm. And I kind of went, oh man, I can carry on, but I'm struggling here. And then I don't know what happened, but wrestling was easy because we it slowed down. It's like, okay, take a second. Hey, I can hear the crowd now. I can feel, okay, next thing. And then by the time we got to the finish, it was like, that worked. And I kind of picked up from there. Okay, this is how you pace yourself. This is how you feel your matches. And I was still working a face at the time. And yeah, it just kind of went, okay, well, I know if I was the face, this is how I want my heel to work. He wants to do fast spots. Okay, we'll time it. Boom, hit the fast spot. He does power moves. Okay, he catches me. He hits the big power move. We've got the fans now. They're behind the face. It kind of just evolved from there.
Yeah, I always loved Paul London's work. I always thought like super underrated as far as, like for me, like especially on the indie scene, I always thought like, Paul London and like AJ Styles were like at the same level all the time.
Yeah.
And I always thought like he had the potential to be as big as like AJ Styles eventually ended up getting. But yeah, I get, sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but I always thought he was amazing. So,
Well, like, one thing you will notice if you do follow me on social media is I talk about Paul a lot. Like, as I say, I'm from a small city in the UK called Carlisle, and like Paul's one of my best mates, and that blows my mind. I'm regularly in touch with him, and he changed how I thought about wrestling, and wrestling's so important to me that he affected my life. And we were lucky enough to have a rematch where he was a mystery opponent, and the build up to it was I had one of the Target Championships, and I had faced people like Shane Strickland and Ricochet, and I kept screwing people out of the title. I'd say one month I'd get disqualified. The month after, the ref would go down. I'd hit them with the belt and then
what a heel.
Get the pin. And then the month after, we'd do the ref goes down, hit them with the belt, then the kick out. And it was all just progression. And then when it came to the match with Paul, I went through the whole playlist, did everything that I tried, nothing worked, and then he beat me for the title. And like the reaction was like we couldn't have asked for anything better. And it's progression, and as I say, Paul's outstanding, and I still think that he could offer so much to wrestling. I think he needs to remember how good he is sometimes.
It's interesting because, like two of the names that people talk about knowing personally, guys that have, been big, but still have this great attitude and great friendship with wrestlers. The two people you mentioned, now it's Paul London, and the other was a few people mentioned was Brian Kendrick, which is funny because they're, really good mates. So there you go. Yeah, like everyone like Darwin Finch and a few other people talked about how much they love Brian Kendrick. And so, yeah, it's I guess, that's why they both hang out with each other. They're both good dudes. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. So what's that like when you bring in names, quote names to a promotion? That's one of the other thing I learned about in wrestling. I worked for Big Time Wrestling when we would bring in, WWF guys and all the time. Names is very sometimes you get people who like Bret Hart would come in and he would be the nicest guy on the planet. And you would get a guy who's kind of a big guy in the indie scene and he would act like an asshole. And you're like, Bret Hart was nice and he's much bigger than you. But so I guess when I say names, I just mean, outsiders that you bring in specifically to book. What is that like as far as, especially if you haven't used them before, how they fit in with the locker room, that kind of thing?
We've been quite lucky here because everyone that we've had in has been spot on. We can't complain with, I think over the 7 years Target have been running, I think maybe only one issue with a wrestler backstage, and he wasn't even a name. And that's we want that because we want the wrestlers to enjoy the experience as much as the fans do, because it makes the whole show better. If somebody's not happy backstage, they're going to go out for the match and you don't really know what you're going to get, do you? So, we want everybody to have the right atmosphere. So, we've been lucky. Like we had Raven, and he was booked in a tag match with three of our trainees, and it was like, okay, we know what we're going to expect from Raven. He's just gonna, he'll probably do not a lot, and then he's going to do a DDT. But people are going to see Raven and cheer. So that's why, you know what I mean, people used him because he got people in the door. So we knew what to expect, and he even told our lads, he's like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm still a bit beat up and all this. And then he went out and he went, yeah, this is good. I'm enjoying myself here. And he joined in. And you know what I mean? If you can get somebody who you kind of expect to have a bad attitude, and not in a negative way, it's just
Yeah.
Seasoned vet, shall we say?
Yeah.
And if they enjoy themselves so much, especially with lads that we've trained, that they want to join in, then like, yeah, more so happy with how that turned out.
Yeah, I got to meet Raven earlier this year. Like, it was right when COVID started, and it was at the C2E2. Because I went to fly out to Chicago to watch AEW's pay per view, and it was the same weekend as C2E2. So I was walking around just checking out the convention, and then who do I see is Raven, Tommy Dreamer, and Road Warrior Animal, and so I'm like, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be Mark for a second, because they were like, oh, pay a few bucks, and you take a photo with Tommy Dreamer and Raven with the ECW title, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm gonna do that. Why not? So I did it, and Raven, as we're taking the photo, Raven's like, another 50 and I'll give you color, brother. And I was like, all right. That's a good joke. I like that. All right. Yeah, he was a cool dude. I actually ended up talking with him and Tommy Dreamer for like 10 minutes. They're both really nice.
We had Tommy on one of our Target shows as well, and yeah, well, as I say, getting experienced people like that on is great for us. And we realized a lot of the fans that come to the Target shows, that's their era. The mid to late 90s is okay. ECW, oh, we know where. Like we've had Blue Meanie, we've had Joel Gertner. It's like, yeah, we know who's going to bring in the crowd now.
Yeah. I had my friend Luke Hawks. He ran a show at the ECW arena, and he had Meanie, he had Gertner, he had all those guys there, and I got a chance to meet him, and they were all so cool. The thing I loved about Dreamer is, well, the one thing I learned also when I was doing the website for Big Time Wrestling is most wrestlers, they like talking about wrestling, but they don't like talking about themselves wrestling, which is a big difference. Nobody wrestler wants to hear, hey, remember that one time you were at blah, blah, and they're like, but Tommy Dreamer, he saw that I had the Lucha Brothers shirt on, and he was like, oh, I love Ray Phoenix. I think and so we sat there, we talked about Ray Phoenix for like 5 minutes. Like, he was totally like, oh, he was like excited to talk about Ray Phoenix. He's like, I think that guy's great. I think he's better than Mysterio. I think he's amazing. And I was like, oh shit, okay. So like, I don't know. To me, like, I love guys that love wrestling that much, where they're like, I just want to talk about wrestling. And even if it's, especially, it's not even about them. He's, like I said, he sat there talking to me about Ray Phoenix for like 5 minutes. I was like, all right.
Yeah. We had Abyss on one of our shows, and he was very much, you could see he loved wrestling, and it was like, yeah, that's a cool dude right there.
Yeah, I've heard great things about him, like even on like Eric Bischoff's podcast. And Eric Bischoff, he's half the time he just wants to shit on some people. Can't blame him. But he talked about how much Abyss was like, he's like a really smart dude, and he's like loves the business and everything. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But yeah. All right, brother. The Booker's come out. It's time to take this bad boy home. I got a bunch of questions I want to ask you for the end of this podcast. Feel free to take as much time as you want on them. This isn't, any crazy rules here. No, your brother is not going to run out and tell you to take it home. So here we go. Speaking of which, has that happened at any point?
No. Luckily enough, no. Another good thing about the Target shows is we do kind of, we limit them to generally 6 matches. So we tend to be finished around like 9:30 p.m. and it's like, that's perfect time. If we run another half an hour, it's fine. If we finish a little short, fine. Once again, the audience there, a lot of them tend to go to a wrestling show and then hit the bars. So it's like a perfect pre night out event. And then if there's families there with kids, hey, the home bed in time for bed, perfect, get it
Yeah.
sorted. So
Yeah, this is a public service announcement, and I've been to a lot of indie shows in my life. Stop the 4+ hour indie shows.
absolutely.
Stop it. That's
Yeah.
I mean, I love wrestling as much as the next guy, but Jesus, man, that's fatigue. You know,
Yeah.
that's the that gets you're not WrestleMania. Stop it. Anyway, and even WrestleMania, don't do that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any any fun road stories or travel stories at all from, I mean, I don't know how much you uh, how far you
Um,
travel as far as wrestling, but
I, the the strangest road story for us was the same night that I worked with Peter Williams. Samoa Joe was also on the show. It was a few years before Tiger, um, and then we had to head down to a place called Coventry for another. There was a big show there, and they had like a lot of names on. So you had myself, my brother, and Peter Williams in one car, and then you had Samoa Joe and a couple of old friends in another car, and just going down the road with them and 3 a.m. service station stops. It was all just a bit surreal. We've done like even our longest drives are probably a short drive to the US. So it's even, as I say, I think we did Carlisle to Great Yarmouth, which was maybe 7 hours drive, and that for the UK that's a big drive, and we did that. We wrestled the UK pit bulls, who have like a combined weight of like 60 stone. Got beat up by them 2 out of 3 falls, and then drove home again. Yeah, it's more just, hey, let's see what the day is going to bring us.
yeah, it's especially here in California, it's Northern California promotions, and then there's about a 4.5, 5, 6 hour drive to Los Angeles, and then that's the LA promotions. And in between, there's nothing. So what happens is what you'll get is guys from LA or guys from Northern California, they drive that 5 hours, 6 hours, depending on traffic. They'll wrestle a match and then drive home right after the event. And it's just like, and then they have work in the morning. And that's yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people forget. Um, like I'm doing a YouTube series called Pro Wrestling is Real Life, and that's one of the reasons why it's called Pro Wrestling is Real Life. Is I have a shoot job. I've got family. Hey, this isn't going to be perfect. I hate talking in front of a camera, but I want to show. Hey, this is what I can do at wrestling. It's rather than just doing hey, look here, watch this match again. I'll just share the link. Just share the link. Just share you end up going, okay, well, I'm not going to click that because I've already seen it 4 times. But I've wanted to kind of freshen it up. So yeah, it's real life having work the next day, or even on the evening. I've worked a match, had concussion, drove home, then went to work, and that hasn't been the best times.
Yeah, I love context with matches. For instance, watching the match between you and Paul London. Now, watching that match, knowing that you're sick as a dog, now that makes it more. I'm like, okay, now I want to look for this now. You know what I mean? Like, it makes you want to pay attention specifically.
Yeah, that's, as I say, that's one of the reasons why I started doing these videos. I want to kind of, hey, I'm a person here. I'm not just, oh, Shady Nattrass, I've heard that name. It is a case of, hey, there's a story here. There's, you know what I mean? It might only be a 30-second story, but on the match with Ricochet, I had put about there being a miss point in the match where it's like just a split second that's wrong, and like nobody's seen it, but it really annoys me. The spot was just before the finish. I was meant to hit him with a forearm, hit the ropes, and I think he was going to hit me with a knee or something. But I was using a cutter as a finisher. And instead of hitting him with a forearm, I went to do the cutter and he pushed us off. And we did the boot. But if you watch carefully, he slaps his leg because he's expecting a forearm. So I go for a cutter and he slaps his leg. It's like a split second, so nobody notices it apart from when it's being pointed out to them. And it's like I sit and watch it and I'm like head in my hands. I'm like, oh no, but yeah, nobody notices. But yeah, if you watch it again, it's just before the finish. You go, oh.
So great.
Yeah, it's a little bit of context to things. Nick adds extra layers to the matches.
If not wrestling, what would you do creatively?
Oh, I've absolutely no idea. I like my girlfriend does a lot of drawing, and I watch her working, and I'm like, I have no idea how you put that together. Like, it's like that doesn't look like, that picture looks nothing like anything. And then she'll show us it like a couple of hours later. It's like, wow, how did you get to there? And it's like, I'm like, I can do wrestling. Creatively, I could do wrestling, and that's very much it.
What's your favorite move or hold that you don't use?
Well, I love taking reverse ranas. That's my favorite move to take. And yeah, I just think when it's done perfectly, it's just like, wow. I seen a clip the other day of somebody doing a corkscrew reverse rana.
I saw that. I saw you post that, and I was like,
yeah, it was just insane. And
it's insane how smooth it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, he hit it so cleanly. It's like, wow.
Yeah, especially like sometimes I think like the worst is when someone does a rana and their legs aren't wrapped around them tight enough.
Yeah.
It bugs me because I'm like, ugh. And but somehow he corkscrews and then his legs like are crossed. I'm like,
oh, it's perfect. Yeah. I've no idea how he did it, but yeah, it was impressive.
So wrestling fans are rowdy to say the least, especially if they've had a little bit of drinking going on. Yeah. What's the craziest fan interaction you've had?
Probably my favorite one was I'd come out for a match and one of the fans had handed out A4 sheets of paper with Shady Sucks on to everybody. There must have been over 200 A4 bits of paper. And like, I just come through the curtain and I was just like, oh my God. It's like, yeah, I'm meant to be like miserable, but it's like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
That is some dedication.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good one. And somebody brought a bloke doll with a printout of my face on it. I don't really know why. But yeah, that was at one show as well.
Oh wow. Besides hurting you in the ring, what's the worst thing an opponent can do when you're working with them in a match?
It's probably just a case of just chill out. Just it's like when wrestlers are rushing, it's like just hang on, calm down. We're gonna get there. we've got time. Just slow down. That whole I understand, especially less experienced wrestlers wanting to get to the next bit. But yeah, it's like, okay, we're gonna have to put the brakes on, take our time. Now, see, we've got it now. We've got it good. We're back in sync now. We're running back together. So, yeah, it's just timing. Just slow down.
It's like when I was doing like open mic comedy. The one thing other people told me was that I've been doing it for longer is like, hey, don't slow down because otherwise, and then I've learned what happens is you have a list of jokes and it must be like, you have a list of getting your shit in, brother. You got to get your moves in. And so what you do is you're like, bam, 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 bam. And then you're like, okay, so I have 5 minutes up here and it's been 1 minute. Oh no. Oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
What do I
absolutely.
do? uh When's a time you were surprised by someone in the ring, as far as how good they were, or just how fluid you both work together despite never working with each other, that kind of thing?
Um, other than Paul, it was either Shane Strickland. We just gelled. I don't. It wasn't even like the communication thing because we just put the match together fine. Um, yeah, it just worked. And the other one would be Josh Terry, who I was talking about earlier, who I'd seen him. I'd only seen him have work one match before, and like I knew he did the likes of Shooting Stars things. And before the show, I said to him, I was like, "Have you ever tried doing a Dragon Rana?" And he was like, "No, but I'll give it a go." And he had skinny jeans on, and he nailed it.
Oh
And
wow.
he was like, he was like, "Yeah, this is once you've got your gear on, this is going to be easy."
Wow. Some
Yeah.
jeans. Um, this is probably gonna be a yes for the first part. Has a booker tried to stiff you on money? And if so, what are
Yeah.
some funny excuses as to why?
Um, well, I've seen. Luckily, it wasn't my brother. I have been to. I was on a show once, and I had asked. I got my wages, and then there was no expenses. So I was like, I caught back up with him, and uh, um, yeah, he's just going to go to the cash machine and get some more cash out. And it's like, I've been waiting here over an hour now. But yeah, it's luckily I have been okay with pays. So
I find that's happened more than once. As a few people have said that they go like they try to like stall you out until you just like give up and leave. I guess they're just like it's like oh yeah I just gotta go to the thing in a little bit, which is yeah. The funniest one somebody said was at the end of the night they were basically playing like around the ring, like every time he would move the promoter would move to the other side, so they were kind of just at some point you're like okay what's happening right now.
we did that trying to leave a venue once. We'd said our goodbyes to everybody, walked all the way around the arena, came back through. Okay, this is the way out. Oh, we're back in the middle, and there's everybody. Bye again. Um,
What's a mistake that you made in wrestling and it turned out to be better because of it?
um, oh, um, probably. Okay, a little behind the scenes thing here. My brother wrestles as Medallion in a mask. So there's a lot of people know, a lot of people don't know. Um, uh, and um, when I turned heel, I turned on him, and I was going. The plan was to give him a chair shot, and I know what my brother's like, and I had said to him beforehand, please make sure you put your hands up. And I think you can imagine where this is going. I
Yeah.
wind up, and as the chair's in midair, I'm going, he's not going to put his hands up. So I crash him over the head with the chair. I'm like, oh, I feel sick because that was some thud on his skull. And the reaction to it was just insane. And it was like, I hate you. But because it's my brother, I couldn't really. I did have words with him afterwards.
Yeah. Oh. What's the hardest you've laughed at an indie show?
Oh, um, probably. Um, oh, that's a good one. Maybe somebody like Grado, because the man's an idiot, and he knows he's an idiot. Um, and yeah, he's it just because he's a funny character. Whether it's been when I've had matches with him, I'm quite good at kayfabe and the laughter. But yeah, he is a genuinely funny person because he, as I say, he's the man's an idiot. But if it works well for him. And the other thing would be one of the referees at Target. I kind of used to rib him every match, whether it's being chicken shit heel behind him while untucking his shirt. So he had to adjust himself, or pulled him to the side before a match once and said, "Look, like, you keep laughing during the matches, you're gonna have to keep a straight face." But then I spent the whole match like in his ear and like just being a bit of a dick, really. But yeah, it was a good laugh, and he was like, "You're just such a bastard."
One of the funniest stories on here was this ref for All Pro Wrestling, Rafael Marquez. There's this wrestler named in the area in SoCal named Little Cholo, and his whole thing is he's dressed like a cholo, like a gangster.
Yeah.
So he's very serious. He's very like stone faced, and there's these little, like, those little quarter machines where like little toys come out for kids.
Yeah.
So they had these ones called Little Homies. So it was like a bunch of like little Hispanic like characters, basically.
Yeah.
So what the referee did was he got like a little homie that kind of looked like Little Cholo, and he had it in his pocket. So when he was checking him, he like slipped it into his hand, and he pretended like he pulled it out of his pocket, and he was like, "What's this?" He's like, "Are you bringing your friends to the match?" And he just started dying because he couldn't help it. He was like, "What? What the hell is going on?"
And another one that happens regularly in our monthly show at Target is one of like my good friends, like since school. He always comes to the show. He has a few drinks. But every time I come to the ring, he's pushing the kids out the way to get to the barrier, and he's like, "Shady, I love you," and it's like, just sit back down. And I say, it's just to pop me, and it's like, oh man.
Oh my gosh. In indie wrestling, we see a lot of different gimmicks. What is the worst gimmick you've seen?
Probably the worst executed one I've seen was I was at a show once, and there was a tag team that were fashion police. Okay, that sounds okay, but they were faces. So like I'm watching, I'm like, it doesn't work, because what are you going to do? Hey, you look nice.
Yeah.
Like, it's not working. If you're heels, or I hate the way you dress, then you'll get booed. But as a face team, it was like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you're supposed to be like in the ring, like, look how great we dress, look how bad all of you dress. Like,
yeah, it's just like, it doesn't work. It just, oh no.
that's so
strange. On the same show, there was a manager. I don't know how much experience these lads had, or anything, or who trained them, and there was a manager, and he had a faction, and he came out during the match, and he had said before the match, he says, "I'm going to come out on the stage, and if they see me, they'll think, oh, I wonder what he's doing here." And like, I'm sat with my head in my hand, I'm like, if they see you, like, if they don't see you, why are you there? like simple things. It's just like, oh,
that's so great.
Torture, absolute torture.
All right, this is the last question. This is my touchy-feely question of the podcast. It is your pure joy in wrestling, the thing that gives you the goosebumps, the thing that makes you say, I love this business, whether it be before, during, or after the match. What is your pure joy in wrestling?
Probably when you get to the finish, and that big pop at the finish, whether I'm winning or losing, if you get that reaction at the end, it makes it all worth it. Yeah, that's what we do it for at the end of the day. And yeah, seeing that, it's just like, yeah, that's good stuff. And the other thing would be, my youngest daughter, who's now 4, she started going to wrestling shows at like 3 or 4 days old. So 4 days old, I've got a picture of her with Ricochet. and that was my my sneaky way of getting photos with wrestlers that I've worked with. And yeah, so like she's got photos with Juventud Guerrera, Blue Meanie, Jay Lethal, and her personal favorite, Jeff Cobb. Why a then 2-year-old would be a massive Matanza fan with his scary mask on, I don't know, but she loves him. It's like, and Jeff give her a little plush Matanza doll, and like it's still in her bedroom now. She loves it. But yeah, I mean, if seeing my kids get reactions from wrestling, whether it's my boy at school with his mates that have been to the show, and he's like, yeah, it's just my dad. It's like, yeah, it's cool. That's what wrestling's about for me. It's moments, and feelings and stuff. We all like watching cool stuff, but if it doesn't mean anything, what's the point? You don't watch a TV show that you're not bothered about any of the characters. So why watch wrestling if you don't bother about the characters? Watch it and get yourself right in there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being on the podcast. But first, put over your social media, Project Unity, all that stuff.
At Shady Nattrass on Twitter. If you're on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Shady Nattrass. At Shady Nattrass on Instagram. On YouTube, it's Pro Wrestling is Real Life. And I've got 5 videos on the series so far, and every Wednesday I put a new one up. Project Wrestling Unity, that's at Wrestling Unity on Twitter, Project Wrestling Unity on Facebook. Just go in, take a look. There is stores, like a merchandise store. If t-shirts sell, great. I'm not in Project Wrestling Unity for money. As I say, if people buy it and want to support it, great. But I don't want people to think that it's just been started to sell t-shirts, because that's kind of overseeing the point of it. But yeah, just give me a follow, and hopefully you enjoy my work. I've like absolutely loved being on here. It's first international podcast I've done, so it's my pleasure being on. And I personally, the reason why I share the podcast when you put your links up, is I listen to it myself, and I enjoy it. There's a nice mix of like real life and kayfabe things involved. Yeah. You do need to have a good mix. I don't want to watch or listen to an interview fully kayfabe, because you don't know. It's like, okay, I get it. I get the nod and the wink.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like to hear the real stories.
Yeah, you like to get to know the people. That's what I feel like. Absolutely. That's why I got. Plus, it's a good way to, like, a lot of people on here, I never met you before in person, but a lot of people on here are people I haven't talked to in like a decade or two. And it's kind of like nice to just catch up with them about wrestling, to be honest. Yeah. So yeah, but thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate you.
No problem. Anytime.